A lot has changed in the year since the Omoda E5 hit the market. However, I think you'll agree, you've probably been seeing more of these on the road lately, haven't you? Now, I'd like to clarify that today's video has nothing to do with a product year update. In fact, this is exactly the same car that we drove about a year ago. Now, that means that power remains from the front with a single electric motor producing about 204 PS and 340 Newton meters of torque, being powered by a 61 kilowatt hour LFP blade battery sourced from BYD. Unfortunately, that also means that charging has not been updated, and so DC charging is capped at 80 kilowatts, which means 30 to 80% takes about half an hour-ish or something less than that, while AC charging remains a rather paltry 9.9 kilowatts, which means that it will take a long time to charge this thing up, about 7 hours. What has changed, however, is the value proposition, because while this car still retails at about 146,000 ringgit brand new, at the moment, Chery Auto Malaysia is offering 2024 model year cars from under 100,000 ringgit, representing a massive rebate in addition to getting things like free charging credits, a wall box, and a variety of other things. And that is why you've been seeing a lot more of this car. Now, the thing about the Omoda E5 is that this is not a dedicated EV. This car is built off of the same platform from the Omoda 5 with its 1.5-litre turbocharged combustion engine. As a result, there are some impracticalities to this, but again, when you're talking in that sub 100,000 ringgit price range, it is pretty hard to beat. What that also means is that in terms of the overall design and visual appeal of the car, nothing has changed, which means that up front, you get a slightly different face compared to the turbocharged model with slightly different daytime running lights, and more importantly, the grille has made way for the charging ports, which is a bit of a hit and miss because on the one hand, you can now nose into a charging space. On the other hand, you have to nose into a charging space. Now, as we move further down the side, rolling stock is handled by a set of 18-inch alloy wheels wrapped in Kumho Exa tires, replete with a more aerodynamic design to the alloy wheels. Moving further down, you don't get the two-tone bodywork that you get on the Omoda 5H, but you still get black wing mirror caps for better or worse, and of course, you still get a proper keyless entry and go system replete with a touch point out here, although this car does come with proximity unlock and locking functions. Now, from this angle, you might also spot the fact that the battery pack on this car does hang a little bit lower than what you would normally find the floor pan for the Omoda 5 Turbo. That again goes back to the fact that this is not a bespoke EV platform, and as a result, the batteries are not part of the chassis, and so they do hang a little bit lower, but your overall ground clearance remains still well within crossover expectations, so you don't have to worry about this scraping over anything. And as Chery would like to point out, these battery packs have also been tested to their absolute limits, being submerged in salt water for over 50 hours, being penetrated, scraped, and God knows what else. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Chery has even stacked these cars on top of each other to prove the fact the battery packs are very strong indeed. So there's nothing to worry about there, even if it does look like a little bit of an add-on. That also means that at the rear, nothing much has changed, which means that you still get a set of full LED taillights replete with scrolling indicators, no light bar here, but more importantly, you also get a Omoda badging here instead of Chery. And down below, we no longer get exhaust exits, but you still get an LED fog light mounted right here. Great for outgoing Vios drivers. Now, if you were to open the tailgate, you will find a pretty good amount of space because the Omoda 5 has always been a decently practical affair. So while this is certainly large enough for most people, there is actually more space underneath the boot floor to hide things like charging cables and stuff like that. And more importantly, if you need more space, the rear seats can be folded 60-40 for added practicality, and they do lie completely flat. One small thing about this car that I'm not a big fan of is the fact that this parcel shelf cannot be hidden underneath the boot floor, which means that if you want to take it out, it is out. You have to make that decision consciously. You can't just leave it somewhere in the car. Although if you are folding the rear seats flat, I have found that you can hide this just behind the front seats, just ahead of the rear seats, if that makes sense to you. Now, inside the Omoda E5, the interior design is slightly different from what we've seen from the turbocharged model, although some things are retained. So for example, up front, we have what Chery calls the 26.3-inch or whatever the hell it is screen. It's not. They are twin 12.3-inch screens, this handling your IHU and this handling your instrument cluster and all that other information. And so these two screens do work separately. This handles all your infotainment functionalities and all of your various other settings and so on, which is always nice to see. And overall, I do think that while this system does have some of its foibles, it's not the worst thing in the world. One of the things I don't appreciate, however, is the fact that the touch panel for the air conditioning from here has disappeared and now it's all built into the screen. That said, however, you can always swipe from the bottom in order to access the air conditioning controls, even if you're running wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. And more importantly, if you swipe from the top, you get a bunch of other shortcut buttons, which are also customizable should there be anything that you want to add or subtract. Now, beyond that, of course, you have the digital instrument cluster that I mentioned earlier, and this gives you all the information that you need at a glance. I appreciate the fact that it's quite large, which means that, again, you get all the information at a glance. You're never sort of looking for it. It's never a hunt and that sort of thing. Now, beyond that, you also get one of the more annoying features on this car, which is a driver monitoring system, also known as a retina camera. Now, this thing is pointed directly at me. Now, the reason why I find this annoying is because it is a little bit too over-eager. So, for example, if I'm driving along and I move my head down to look at this screen for a little while, it starts screaming at me. If I try to adjust my air conditioning controls, it'll start screaming at me. In fact, if my eyes are anywhere but right here, it'll start screaming at me. It's irritating. And there is a way to disable this, but it's somewhere hidden deep in here, in a way that's, here we go. So it's actually in your system settings, and you shut that off. If you're wondering why the car keeps trying to connect to wireless Android Auto, it's because it's trying to connect to my phone, but I keep telling it no, and so it's just a little bit upset. Now, beyond that, the design, as I mentioned, has been changed slightly. And so here, for example, instead of a gear selector here, you get a gear selector up here as a stalk, and all of your other functions live here, which means that your indicators, your wipers, front and rear, including your high beam, all of that just live on this singular stalk. Now, at first, it does seem a little bit busy, but the thing is, things like the lights as well as the wipers, those are automatic, and so you don't really need to fuss with this all that often. And in terms of getting the windscreen to wipe and stuff like that, it's just a button right here on the end, or a little toggle switch if you're trying to control the wiper at the rear. Your light controls actually live on a separate panel down here, very similar to what we've seen before from some European cars, for example. The steering wheel has been lifted basically lock, stock and barrel out of a J-Coupe, which means that it functions in broadly the same way. But because we don't have a gear selector, we have this nice big felt line cubby hole here, which can be closed. There are a couple of cup holders here, a wireless charging pad, and you get a bank of buttons here to control various other things like switching this screen on and off. Your drive mode selector has its switch defoggers and your AC button. Now, opening this thing via this nice metallic-y feeling button, you will find a pretty decently sized center console bin, replete with air conditioning control, which means that this area does stay quite cool. And because there is no gear selector here, there is also space underneath this center console to hide even more things, and there's even a USB-C, USB-A and 12-volt socket here, which means that you can actually charge up your devices quite easily. There's a decently sized glove box here, although it's not felt lined, which means anything you put in there will rattle about, as you've no doubt heard. There are decently sized door bins here, big enough for a litre and a half size bottle. There's more cubby holes here, and overall it does seem pretty practical. Now, there are two things in this car that I would like to point out just for the sake of pointing them out. Firstly, it does come as standard with a sunroof, which is always nice to see, and secondly, you get this electrochromic rear view mirror. Now, this is not particularly fancy or interesting, but for whatever reason, in the E5, this is just a normal mirror, whereas in the Omoda 5 and the Tigo 8 Pro and the Tigo 7 Pro, it's like this weird sort of wider, less magnification kind of thing. It's like using an ultra-wide camera. And so that gives you a better view of what's going on inside the car, but then it makes what's going on outside a little bit harder to see. So that's weird, but I'm glad that we don't have that here. Your controls for the sunroof, by the way, live here, which is always nice to see, and there is also a USB port up here for you to fit a dash cam. Unfortunately, it is mounted on the driver's side, which means that you have to ensure that your cable's a bit short. Now, in terms of other practical features, this car also comes with dual zone climate control, and you get two front seats which are both electrically adjustable, replete with ventilation, which means that sat here I am very comfortable, even though I do have the sunroof open. Although these cars, I'm told, do come with tint, which means that generally you're not going to be overheating in here. Now, the reason I mentioned the tint is because back here is quite dark. But that said, because of this car's rather bright interior upholstery, it does mean that it doesn't feel like I'm in a dark, claustrophobic space. Now, sat behind myself about 170 centimeters, I do have a decent amount of knee room and a pretty decent amount of headroom despite this car's rather dramatic roofline. But because this is not built off of a bespoke EV platform, the batteries have eaten in a little bit into the footwell space, and as a result, I don't have that much under thigh support if I were to put my feet about as close to the base of the rear seat as possible. If I stretch out underneath the seat in front of me, which I can't really do that comfortably, then at that point I do get some semblance of comfort, but it really isn't all that much. There is some degree of compromise back here which you should be aware of if you're considering one of these cars. The other thing that requires some compromise is the rear air conditioning, because while there is an air conditioning vent, there is only one rear air conditioning vent, which means that if you have two adult passengers, you are going to be fighting as to who gets the air conditioning back here, or you'll have to use a timeshare program or something like that. Now, there are two USB ports, but only one is USB-C, the other is USB-A. There are decently sized pockets on the backs of the front seats. There are decently sized door bins, big enough for a liter-sized bottle, and there are decently sized pockets here, at least certainly large enough for a phone, if they are of a normal phone size, which mine is not. Now, beyond that, there are also ISOFIX mounts, and so mounting a child seat back here shouldn't be too much of a faff. And of course, there is a deployable center armrest here with a couple more cup holders, and as an adult passenger, I think that you can sit back here quite comfortably for a few hours if need be. And I do think that this is a pretty decent proposition if you're looking at a family car or a starter family car. Now, one of the things about the Omoda E5 is that this is ultimately, again, an electric alternative to the turbocharged Omoda 5. But because this car has a much punchier electric powertrain, it does change the way it drives. And that's even before we talk about the fact that this car has a completely different rear suspension setup. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Omoda E5 runs a different rear suspension setup compared to the Omoda 5 Turbo. This was necessary in order to accommodate the additional weight from the LFP batteries. Now, there are some benefits to this. Now, firstly, the Omoda 5 Turbo, we did accused of being a little bit floaty, a little bit disconnected from behind the wheel, whereas that doesn't seem to be the issue or the case at all in the Omoda E5. Instead, this car feels a lot more planted, it feels a lot more solid, it feels a lot more dependable. It feels more like a well-engineered crossover as you'd expect at this price point and of course within this segment. And then, of course, there is the fact that there is no longer a turbocharged motor up front, which means that motive force is fully electric, which also means that as you move forwards, as you move towards and create the necessary speed that you need, everything happens very smoothly indeed. There is no hesitation, there's no CVT rubber band effect. This car just picks up and goes with the readiness of just about any other EV. If anything, the throttle mapping on this car does seem to be a little bit gentle in the sense that it builds up the torque rather than delivers it in one fell swoop, which I think is a lot more approachable for a lot of first-time EV buyers. It feels a little bit more like a traditional internal combustion car rather than something completely different. But of course, the benefit to this car being all electric is naturally in terms of refinement, because this car is whisper quiet at urban speeds, which is where the majority of these cars will spend their time anyway. Doing any speed sort of below 90 kilometers an hour, there's barely any road noise and no wind noise whatsoever. And as a result, it means that doing the daily grind in this car, going to work and back, for example, or doing your day-to-day errands just feels completely effortless. And of course, because the fact this car has a relatively small LFP battery measuring at about 61 kilowatt hours, it does mean that even charging via a 3-pin plug at home will yield a pretty decent amount of charge, about 30% overnight thereabouts, which is more than enough for people to use on a day-to-day basis. And then, of course, there is the fact that thanks to this uprated suspension, it does also yield improvements in terms of high-speed driving. If you're just cruising on the motorway, for example, this car feels a lot more connected. It feels a lot more communicative to the driver, which means that as you're cruising along at about 110, 120 kilometers an hour, from the driver's seat, this car feels a lot more confident than the Omoda 5 Turbo upon which it's based. I think that the added weight also does a lot in order to load up that suspension, so it doesn't feel like it's bouncing along at the very tips of the suspension range. Instead, it just feels very nicely, very solidly damped, very dependable. Again, it just feels like a very well-engineered vehicle. And so I suspect that that is why we're seeing a lot more of the Omoda E5 now, between those promotions where you can get this car comfortably under 100,000 ringgit. In fact, I've seen some deals for pre-registered test drive vehicles going for much, much less than that. It just means that people are now understanding or beginning to see the value in this car. I will not deny the fact that at 146,000 ringgit, for example, you can get into a Proton E-MAS 7 with a degree of savings there, and that's of course a larger, more practical vehicle. You could also get into a BYD Atto 3, which is now about 120 something odd thousand ringgit. But of course, if you're looking for the very best deal out there, then this is most certainly it. And then when you consider the active safety in this car, which has a full gamut of active safety features in this, which gives it full level 2 semi-autonomy, it just means that this is a pretty good value car for what you can get it for today. Again, the 2024 model year cars are available for a smidge under 100,000 ringgit, and in fact there are deals to be had for pre-owned units, vehicles that have been used for test drive cars, for example, going for comfortably under 100,000 ringgit, making this a really, really good deal. Because at this car's full retail price, 147,000 ringgit, naturally you can save about 20 grand and buy a Proton E-MAS 7, which has slightly better cruising range, about 430 on a full charge. And of course, that is a larger and slightly more practical vehicle compared to the Omoda E5. There's also the BYD Atto 3, which can be had for about 127,000 ringgit, which is also cheaper than this car's retail price. But again, if you're willing to settle for last year's stock, these are still brand new, unregistered with delivery miles on them, which means that you're getting that rebate for basically nothing. And you still get the full warranty on this car, plus the full 8-year warranty for the high voltage system, which means that there is absolutely nothing to lose. Now, of course, if you are looking for the very largest C-segment electric SUV out there, then of course the Proton E-MAS 7 is very, very hard to beat. That car is absolutely massive in every measurable way, and the Omoda E5 simply cannot keep up. And of course, while this car does drive with a degree of confidence, and that's always nice to see, if you want what might be the best driving vehicle within this class, then of course there is the MG S5 EV with its rear-wheel drive platform and of course more optimized interior packaging. But overall, if you're looking for an excellent deal at under 100,000 ringgit, then the Omoda E5 is certainly worth a shout. There is a reason why we've been seeing more and more of these cars, and it is simply down to the fact that they do seem to deliver relatively unbeatable value. At 99,000 ringgit, this car competes with the BYD Dolphin, for heaven's sake, and for which you're getting a bigger battery, more range, a larger car, which means that this is something worth considering, especially if you're looking for your first EV, or if you're looking for a starter EV for a starter family, if you've got young kids, for example, or if you're just looking for a car to pot about town in and not really do that many miles in, then again, the Omoda E5 just makes a lot of sense. This is a really great car. It was a great car at 146 grand, and it's an even better car for under 100,000 ringgit. In any case, that concludes our throwback review, if you will, of the Chery Omoda E5. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so notified every time we make a new upload. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. All the links are in the description below, including the link to join our new WhatsApp channel. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and jangan bodoh. Also, in one of these, you'll never make noises like that, which is always nice.